Newcastle United take on Manchester United this weekend. Just looking at those scenes, the celebrations of that famous Carabao Cup victory will live long in the memory. We're still going to see those scenes. It's some of the pictures of the season. Could they ride that crest, that momentum, all the way into Europe now, do you think?
Yeah, possibly. Sometimes it's a case of after the Lord Mayor show, you know, and the season goes that way, but it hasn't looked like it. It looks like they're nice and sharp and ready to go. Looks like they're picking the minutes for Isak, who's obviously going to be the one who will take them over the line on the chase to Europe. So yeah, why not? You know, they're euphoric. You see the fans are up for it, certainly. Whenever they play at home, they'll be treated like kings there, and rightly so. You know, it's been such a long time. Manager's not well at the moment. I'm not sure that's going to make too much difference to him. You know, he's been in bed, ill at the moment, Eddie. So we wish him well. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. But Jason Tindall will be there, and he'll be barking out the orders for the guys. And yeah, you're right. I think the momentum might get them through, might get them over the line. But it's going to be tough, isn't it? You know, everyone's chasing that, but everyone's chasing the same goal at the moment. You know, it's all about the 4th and 5th place.
Yeah, absolutely. Just thinking about what they've already achieved, it's already a memorable season. How much would it be the cherry on top to add Europe qualification to that as well?
They almost had that 2 years ago when they got into the Champions League in top 4, to be fair, and just lost that final to Manchester United. So it's almost like kind of coming around again and having learned from that experience. And I think it's interesting with the kind of, you're talking about after the Lord Mayor's show, because I wonder did circumstances help them there a little bit. I mean, obviously they were full value for the win over Liverpool, much the better team in the day. But you're right, I think maybe the fact there was immediately international break, and then there was the FA Cup, and then their first game back was more forgiving against Leicester. Sorry, one of the two back. That it just allowed them also to kind of let that energy seep through and then use it in a positive way rather than necessarily sap them. And suddenly they look, like, given that this has been a really testing season with all the kind of European fixtures, the expansion of European competition, I think a few teams have the potential to flag, whereas they suddenly have this energy now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as Tim mentioned, Eddie Howe hasn't been feeling very well this week, so his assistant Jason Tindall will took his place at the press conference. Let's see what he had to say.
We're in a position that, you know, we would have wanted to be in, with 8 games remaining, competing for Champions League places. And you just say, with the Arsenal result the other night means there's an extra place, 5 teams from the Premier League, but then there's a lot of teams that are fighting for them positions. So, you know, all we can focus on, we know we've got a busy week coming up, but the most important thing is that we just focus on the Man United game and making sure that we prepare right for that.
Well, this is the race for Europe, and those 5 teams, the race for Champions League, in fact, and we know that it's going to be top 5 in the Premier League that get it. Just looking at this graphic now and where everyone kind of stands, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, what Newcastle do have is a game in hand against Crystal Palace, which is what Jason was mentioning when he said we have a busy midweek as well. And if they do that, they'd leapfrog Chelsea. It'd be amazing scenes for them.
5 games at home is crucial for Newcastle. It's such a hotbed up there. I mean, it's an amazing atmosphere. I used to love playing up there at Newcastle. So that will give them the advantage. But it's so difficult to handpick the wins. You know, I look at Forest's run there. I think it looks very, very difficult for me. Look, they've got Leicester, and everyone will beat Leicester, unfortunately for them. But Chelsea might need something in that last day of the season as well. I've just got a sneaky feeling that Man City will get over the line. They will get it done, and I think Nottingham Forest might drop out.
It does look
even with a lead they have.
After the Villa game, that City's run is quite forgiving. And they've got, they've got the cup, which actually might help them in the same way it could help Newcastle. Newcastle's run, I think, in terms of the pure names they're facing, does look the most difficult. But again, we come back to that issue, kind of the emotion they've got, the fact there's so many home games. And yeah, suddenly, Forest as well are in a situation where they could well get distracted by their own cup run amid what is an awkward set of fixtures.
Is that their advantage, that Newcastle have done their cup business now and they don't have anything else to focus on besides this?
Yeah, this is it, exactly, yeah. And to play from week to week. Yeah, I think they potentially maybe the most difficult run in. Chelsea's isn't actually that great either. But yeah, they're in a different circumstance to the rest.
Well, Ruben Amorim sat down earlier this week to give his thoughts on the trip to St James's Park.
They won a title this year, and you feel it. I watched the I watched the game and I was in the dressing room preparing for our game, and I felt how emotional all the people there were with the title. So I expect a very good environment, but we have things to do. We have to play better than the last game against them. So we'll try to do that.
Yeah, we're talking race for Europe, and if Newcastle, on the cusp of it, and as you were saying, have a favourable run, Manchester United, how far away are they next season from getting back among the elite?
How far away? I mean, at the moment, you'd say an absolute country mile. I'm not sure that anyone at that football club has been improved by Ruben Amorim. I'm surprised by that. I think he will have an opportunity to strengthen in the window. I'm not sure how much money is available to him. Forget trying to sell players to try and generate some cash, because I'm not sure anyone's going to buy their players for too much money, because they've shown nothing this season. There's only one man really, and it's Bruno Fernandes, and I think he's taken them so far. There is an opportunity, obviously, for them to win Europa League. They're one of the favourites to be able to do it. They got a 2-2 the other night. I think they're capable of winning it. As every other team in that competition is capable of winning it. It really is heads or tails who goes through and who nicks that Champions League spot. It's fine margins. If they was to do that, to win the Europa League and qualify for the Champions League, it'd be a magnificent achievement for them against all odds, because he admits himself, Ruben, when he talks to the media, he doesn't try and pull the wool over anyone's eyes. He's very candid, he's very honest with his appraisal of his side, and he's probably more critical than any of us when he talks about his own team, and he's absolutely spot on. They're not good enough at the moment, and they need a lot of surgery.
0-0 against Manchester City, and then, as Tim mentioned, 2-2 in that Europa League encounter, a game where Onana did not come off very well.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I was going to say is, as Tim was talking there, actually just thinking, I think you're right. I think they haven't really improved any players. They've dependent on Bruno Fernandes. But I think the one thing that has changed is, if you compare their last game against Newcastle over Christmas, when Newcastle just destroyed them, it was game over after half an hour. United looked a shambles. They don't look like they can sink to that level again. I think at the very least, the defensive structure looks a bit more solid, unless, of course, the goalkeeper has something like he did in the Europa League game. It was the wrong time for him to speak in that sense. But there is at least something there. And I suppose, to be fair to United as well, they've been a bit, maybe, it's almost as if the more difficult games suit them a bit more, because they can respond to the opposition rather than one of those games where they have to go and win.
But Miguel, this is not their priority. So all eyes will be on the Europa League game. So I can see them resting the I don't know who's their main player. Obviously there is one main player, and that's Bruno Fernandes. Other than that, you might as well just put anyone in there, because they're not. But he, in his mind, Ruben Amorim, will have probably 4 or 5 where he wants to be fit for the second leg. So he might rest players against Newcastle.
If you're Amorim, then are you almost using this game as a training exercise in some ways?
Yeah, absolutely. Give minutes to the players I need to get minutes to. Luke Shaw, for instance, he's finding his way back to fitness. He was on the bench the other night, never come on. I think it's time to introduce him. If you've got any aspirations to go far and win the Europa League, I think you need players like Luke Shaw in your side. Yes, he's been out for an awful long time, but if he was to get an hour and then, they do qualify, they manage to get past next week, then you just don't know. You need players like him. So it might be an opportunity for the guys who have been out and off the scene for a very long time. But we wish them well, because personally I want Man United to do very well. But they're to answer your question, Jules, they're miles away from challenging for the European positions.